My name is Linda Matthews, and I live in Seattle, Washington. I'm 46 years old, and if I'm being honest, I had long convinced myself that certain things in life, like deep excitement, the kind that makes your heart race, were meant for younger years. Not that my life was bad. It was steady, comfortable, and predictable. I had a decent job as a project coordinator at a local nonprofit, a nice little townhouse near Capitol Hill, and a circle of friends who were supportive and kind. But if I'm being truly honest, I had started to feel like I was moving through my days almost on autopilot. I had routines. Wake up early, go for a quick walk even if the Seattle drizzle tried to stop me, make my coffee, head to work, and repeat the cycle again the next day. My evenings were usually spent with books, television, or the occasional dinner with a friend. Life was fine, but it wasn't thrilling. It didn't make my heart skip a beat. It didn't make me feel alive in the way I used to when I was younger. I told myself that was normal. That's just what happens with age. But then one ordinary afternoon, something shifted in a way I never could have expected. It happened on a Wednesday. I was leaving work a little later than usual. The office had been noisy all day with meetings and phone calls, and my mind felt drained. The sky outside was painted in deep purples and oranges as the sun set behind the Space Needle in the distance. I decided to stop by a small independent coffee shop I often visited when I needed a break. It was called Harbor Brew, a cozy spot with old wooden tables, shelves filled with used books, and the smell of roasted beans that always felt like home. I ordered my usual latte and found a seat by the window. That's when I noticed him. A man sitting at the table across from me, sketching in a notebook. He looked to be around my age, maybe a little older, with dark hair streaked with gray and an expression of quiet concentration. Something about the way he was so focused caught my attention. I didn't mean to stare, but I found myself curious. A few minutes later, when I accidentally dropped my pen on the floor and it rolled toward his table, he picked it up and handed it back to me with a smile. "Looks like this wanted to join my sketches," he joked. His voice was warm, calm, the kind of voice that made you instantly feel comfortable. I laughed, thanked him, and before I knew it, we were talking. His name was Michael Turner. He was an architect who had recently moved back to Seattle after spending several years working in San Francisco. He told me he liked to spend evenings sketching ideas for projects, even if they never became real buildings. It was his way of keeping his creativity alive. Our conversation started light: Seattle weather, favorite coffee blends, books we liked, but it didn't stop there. We ended up talking until the cafe closed, and I walked home that night feeling something I hadn't felt in years: a spark. Over the next few weeks, I found myself going back to Harbor Brew more often, and so did he. Sometimes we planned it, sometimes it felt like coincidence, but either way, we always ended up in conversation. It wasn't romantic, not at first. It was just two people connecting, sharing stories about work, travel, and life. But each time we talked, I felt more alive. He asked questions that made me think, laughed in a way that felt genuine, and listened in a way that made me feel heard. I realized how much I had missed that feeling: the excitement of discovering someone new, the energy of seeing the world through someone else's perspective. One Saturday, he invited me to join him at the Seattle Art Museum. They had a new exhibit featuring contemporary design and architecture, and he thought I might enjoy it. Walking through those galleries, I saw the passion in his eyes as he explained details I might have missed. I found myself drawn not just to the art, but to the way he lit up when talking about it. It made me realize how inspiring it is to be around someone who truly loves what they do. After the museum, we walked through Pike Place Market. The air was filled with the scent of fresh flowers, seafood, and pastries. Street musicians played guitars, and tourists crowded around the fishmongers who tossed salmon through the air with practiced precision. It was chaotic and alive, and I felt alive with it. Michael bought me a bouquet of tulips, saying, "These match the spark in your smile." I hadn't blushed like that in decades. Weeks turned into months, and our connection deepened. Sometimes we met for coffee, sometimes for dinner, and sometimes just to walk along the waterfront, watching the ferries move across Puget Sound. I noticed how being around him made me braver, more open. I started saying yes to things I used to decline, like attending community events, trying new foods, even joining him on a weekend hike through the Cascades. One hike stands out in my memory. We had climbed a trail that led to Rattlesnake Ledge, a lookout with sweeping views of mountains and lakes. Standing there with the wind in my hair and the sun setting behind the peaks, I turned to him and admitted, I never thought I'd feel this way again at my age. Excited. Hopeful. Like life still has so much waiting. He smiled gently and said, "Why should excitement have an age limit?" That question has stayed with me ever since. It wasn't about romance in the traditional sense. It was about rediscovering myself through connection. About realizing that just because I was in my 40s didn't mean the best parts of life were behind me. In fact, it felt like some of the best parts were just beginning. One evening, after another long day at work, I came home to find a small sketch tucked into the pages of a book I had borrowed from him. It was of Haber Brew, the cafe where we met, but in the drawing, there were two figures sitting by the window. Me and him. It was simple, but it touched me more than I can explain. It made me realize how much that little coffee shop moment had changed my life. Looking back now, I see that meeting Michael wasn't just about finding someone to talk to. It was about rediscovering the spark in myself. About remembering that life doesn't end when you hit a certain age, that joy and discovery can still find you, even when you least expect it. I never expected to feel that way at my age. But I did. And I'm grateful, because it reminded me that the heart doesn't have an expiration date.